What's something you learned embarrassingly late in life? 1. I am from Mississippi, and until I was 18 I thought that everyone else in the country counted with their own state, i.e., instead of 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi they would count 1 Nevada, 2 Nevada, or 1 Maryland, 2 Maryland, etc. My dad was fond of framing questions to my brother and or me regarding just what on earth we were doing, up to age 10 or so, when it no longer seemed necessary using the term pray tell, as in what are you doing with the tools. Pray tell, I presumed a prattle was a gentle equivalent to goofball or dummy. One day I corrected my brother about some misconception he had, addressing him as you prattle. What did you call him? Asked Dad, who happened to be nearby. A prattle. You call us that all the time. I do. Yeah. You say what is that supposed to be? Prattle. I'd never seen him laugh through a facepalm before. Knowledge is power. Francis Bacon. I thought sedan was a car brand until I was 22. Until I was in school for environmental studies, I thought morning dove was morning dove. I usually heard them calling in the mornings, so morning made sense to me. I just learned this now, thanks. I didn't know tortilla chips were made out of tortillas until I was 20 years old and saw the line cook at my job cut up a tortilla and throw it in the deep fryer. Oh. Get your oil sizzling, drop in for about 45-60 seconds, lightly salted crunch. When I was 10 I thought the word masturbate meant contemplate, so I told my math teacher that I needed more time to masturbate my math problem. Also, when I was 15 I learned that a woman's eggs were not the same size as chicken eggs. I thought periods were so bloody because the chicken-sized egg was stretching them out. When I was really young my sister told me she threw her guts up, so I was really afraid of vomiting my entire insides up for years. When people say quote unquote I thought they were saying quote unquote. Let me tell you about how I thought you were awarded a Pulitzer Prize. Not too late in life, but I thought my parents were making rum and cokes until I went to college, which, I think is a much better name for the drink anyway, rum and coke. That a prostitute doesn't actually sell a piece of their body. Backstory: my mum and I were watching the scene from Titanic where Jack tells Rose that he painted a one-legged prostitute. I asked my mum what a prostitute was and she told me it's someone who sells their body for money. I could not fathom why someone would sell their leg for like $30. LOL, that was just a perfect confluence of unrelated information to confuse you. It was a completely logical connection to make. When we were kids, our parents explained it as someone that you pay and they'll do whatever you want, and it seemed like a variety of handyman. Things aren't supposed to start to get blurry at about 15-20 feet. Learned I needed glasses at like 26 from one of these threads. Yes people, you are supposed to be able to see individual leaves on trees. Hope someone else can be helped like I was. I'll never forget the first time I looked up into the night sky after I got glasses, and realized that you can, in fact, see the moon clearly. I assumed people who depicted it in art were taking creative license BC. They knew it should look like that for some reason, and that the human eye was incapable of seeing the moon without also seeing two other, blurrier moons, sort of overlapping it. It blew my mind. I live near the hospital for joint diseases. When I was a kid I thought it was a special hospital for people who had two different diseases at the same time. Person with multiple diseases here. I will raise this at the next meeting with the hope of adopting it. When I was a teenager, I posted a status online that said I was jacking off. I thought that meant you were just bored and wasting time, until my older sister messaged me, horrified. When I was a teenager, I thought the expression to eat someone out meant the same thing as to chew someone out. Unfortunately I was educated on this after I told someone in a church that I wasn't expecting to be eaten out that morning at breakfast. I was 17 LMAO. My father still says this. He's in his 80s, and at this point there's no stopping him. OMG, 81-year-old dad does too. I ate his ass out like no tomorrow. I thought ponies were just baby horses until the age of 23. I did. Until I was 23, I didn't think horses aged like turtles. I'm dumb, but not that dumb. Okay, so I read that as baby horses are known as ponies until they officially become adult horses at the age of 23. Considering that the average lifespan of a horse is like 30 years or something, I was shocked that the commenters below you had thought the exact same statistic as you did. That players on American sports teams do not all originally come from the area where their team is from. I was maybe 17 or 18 before learning that it was Timbuktu, not Timbuktu. I thought there was an original Timbuk out there somewhere. I was about 25 when I found out Timbuktu was a real place. I had thought it was just an expression for a faraway place. I had to move to the city of Kalamazoo to realize it was an actual place and not just something Dr. Seuss made up to rhyme with Timbuktu. Coca and cocoa are two different plants, not one magical organism lol. If one plant gave us both cocaine and chocolate, that would be a compelling reason to believe there is a God and he wants us to fucking party edit. Oh, this blew up. Thank you for the awards and internet points. Potatoes give us vodka and fries, so yeah, God. Homer, Lisa, honey, are you saying you're never going to eat any animal again? What about bacon? Lisa, no. Homer, ham? Lisa, no. Homer, pork chops? Lisa, Dad, those all come from the same animal. Homer, chuckling, yeah, right, Lisa, a wonderful, magical animal. It's just a little airborne, it's still good, it's still good. That all the places in France were not named after wines. Some were named after cheeses. That pineapples grow on the ground, and not in a tree. I actually just learned this, just now, at 28 years old. That a coma was a coma. Until I was probably 19 I thought it was akama. I thought you fell into akama. For the longest time I thought astigmatism was astigmatism, so I think we cancel each other out. I was probably 21 or 22 when I learned that whole milk is only 3% fat. I always thought it was 100, and when I saw reduced as being 2% I thought why wouldn't they do 50% or somewhere in the middle? Would 100% fat not just be literal fat? Pretty much, but a BTW is 80% fat. And 100% delicious. Birds have sex. I thought that the mother bird laid the egg and the father fertilized it later. I was 18 and asked my mother what the birds were doing. To be fair, that's how some fish reproduce. Ah yes, I remember that episode of the Magic School Bus. My sister was in her 50s when she found out the meaning of, you have an addictive personality. She thought after all these years of therapy that it meant that people were addicted to her personality. We laugh hysterically when we talk about this, in a very sad way. I learned that pork and beans are not called cowboy beans. I was 18 and asked a grocery store clerk to help me find the cowboy beans. We were looking everywhere and I was getting frustrated because I know that every store carries these beans. After a while I pick up a pork and beans can with a picture and say, see, it looks just like this. He says, you mean pork and beans? Then I realized that my mum called them that so that I would eat them. The look of disappointment from that grocery store clerk haunts me to this day. Dude, that's fucking hilarious. Houston is not the name of the guy astronauts talk to. Houston, we have a problem, your name isn't Houston. I thought that horses had toes until I was 22. I thought the hoof was a horse show and the toes were tucked inside. How did I learn how wrong I was, you ask? I was walking past a cavalry museum and saw a horse statue and loudly remarked it must hurt so bad when they fold a horse's toes to put them into the shoe. Dozens of horse enthusiasts turned and looked at me with wild bewilderment in their eyes. This one absolutely made me giggle. Just the visual of this happening is fantastic. The saying is, nip it in the butt, and not in fact nip it in the butt. A few months ago, two of my colleagues both handed in their notice at around the same time. I kept reading, hearing the sentence, they are both moving on to pastures new, being thrown about the office in the weeks leading up to them leaving, and I hadn't heard this phrase before and thought that was the name of the rival company that they were going to. I thought it was weird that nobody was talking about how they were both leaving for the same company. I was in the car with one of the ones who was leaving and said, so where is that you and X are going to be working? Is it? And just before I could embarrass myself and say pastures new, they interrupted me and said they are not going to the same place and asked me where I had heard that. I think at that moment I realized I was stupid and didn't mention it again. Not me, but my wife. My wife's dad always likes to mix idioms for fun, that is barking up a tree without a paddle. So a lot of times my wife will say something like twist my leg instead of twist my arm. And then when I get confused she'll stomp her foot and say Dad. It's very cute. You should check out Armalafor's That's the whole sub and it really is the bee's pajamas. I didn't know I was circumcised until I was 15 or 16. I was arguing with a girl online. I thought the head was the foreskin and that circumcision cut the actual head of the penis off. On the flip side, I didn't know I was uncircumcised until the same age. I always wondered why all the dick drawings looked a little different than mine. My parents also didn't teach me how to maintain myself, so that wasn't fun learning either. Edit, how wonderful. One of my top comments is about my uncircumcised dick. I expect nothing less from Reddit. I had the exact same problem, man. Parents did not tell me I had to pull back foreskin. They didn't even tell me what puberty was. I had absolutely no idea what a boner was when I got one and believed I was sick. Did you run into your parents' bedroom penis exposed pointing at the erection saying, "Mum, I am sick," because that's how I picture it? No, it went on for a while. Then we were driving around Red Deer and I got stiffies constantly and head on in the back of the minivan, so I finally asked why my penis was getting hard all the time. However, was it just your parents in the vehicle, or did anyone else hear, too? Just my mum. She was baffled and I think she said your dad didn't. I used to think that the Diet Coke bottles on the side of the road which were half full of pale yellow liquid were unfinished Diet Cokes that had been bleached by the sun. About 2 years ago I saw one of these bottles being ejected from a truck and I realized the awful truth. I am 53. While watching Game of Thrones, I asked my husband when dragons went extinct. He had to pause the show for that one. Saint George killed the last dragon. Not me but my mum, waiting for the shower to be warm before stepping in. She grew up with a bathtub most of her life, and didn't get a shower until she moved out of my grandparents' place in her 20s. She was apparently talking to a coworker about the winter weather one morning. While lamenting, she goes, "And don't you just hate getting into a cold shower on these cold days? It takes so long for the water to get warm." Coworker, Cheryl, you know you can just wait until the water gets warm, then hop in. My wife, who is in her 30s, handed me a new stick of deodorant because she couldn't get the plastic piece off the cap new sticks with. I took it, twisted the bottom a couple of times to push the stick up and took the cap off. She looked at me like I was a fucking witch. She had, for most of her life, struggled with new sticks of deodorant and had no idea you could just push the stick up first then take the cap off. Just this week I found out about the little button on the back of the socket driver that pushes the socket off. I have owned the same socket set for about 30 years, and I have a dedicated screwdriver that I keep with my sockets and use to pry them off when I am done using them. I will be 55 years old soon. This is something my little sister did through high school. We're about 8 years apart, so we never overlapped in school. She's always been a straight A student, and I found out she worked extra hard because she wanted to catch up to me in school, so we could be in school at the same time. I almost cried. My little brother had a meltdown at the age of 4, when I informed him that he would never be older than me. I'd eat it for clarity. You're going to be so embarrassed when he tricks you into boarding a spaceship traveling near the speed of light while he remains stationary. I thought that prima donna was prima donna and that it meant everything before the singer Madonna and just assumed she was some kind of universal queen. I also thought it was prima donna, but I thought it just meant that the person was starting to behave like Madonna, like they are prima donna now and will eventually go full Madonna. Yeah, Madonna was very popular when I was young, so I thought it meant they were going to grow into someone like Madonna. Jackalopes are mythical creatures. I was 18, I think. To be fair, I've seen a platypus, rhino, and a giraffe. Those are some BS animals. Narwhals. Narwhals are a real thing. Moving cross-country, driving east to west, crossing from Idaho to Oregon, noticed huge fields with signs for the Ore-Ida Potato Company, so I was in my early 20s when I figured out Ore-Ida wasn't just a brand name but was because their potatoes came from Oregon and Idaho. My sister, a nurse, didn't learn until her mid-20s that rabbits did not in fact lay eggs. I have several nurse friends, and while they are quite capable, they tell me stories of some nurses that should have never graduated middle school. This story tracks. That Cheesecake Factory is a restaurant and not an assembly line of workers making cheesecake. I always envisioned you would go in there and watch them and eat a slice, sort of like a brewery. Edit. I'd like to add that I've lived in close proximity to multiple locations my entire life, and my sister used to go all the time with her friends. I thought they all just really liked the cheesecake, and the factory vibe of it all. It's not until my now fiancée asked me to meet her and her friend there for drinks that I figured it all out, at about age 22-23 lol. It's an assembly line, just one made up of customers. Seriously, a 90-minute wait, at 4:15 p.m. on a Sunday, sir. This is a cheesecake factory, not a Wendy's. It wasn't until I was about 20 that I discovered that you're supposed to add water to condensed soup. Very vividly remember eating condensed tomato soup in my dorm room without any water, so was essentially eating ketchup. You don't have to rip the plastic top off of your new deodorant with your teeth or pliers or anything. You can just turn the base until it comes up enough to just take it off. Oh my god, I should return this master's degree to the university. First time somebody's master's degree has directly made me feel better about myself. I'm 70 now and only learned a couple months ago to lift the lid of the coffee carafe to stop it dripping all over the counter. I poured coffee over the sink all this time. That Jacques Cousteau was a real person. I always just thought he was a fictional character like Sherlock Holmes until I was in my 30s. In the last year I found out peanut butter is brown. I'm 34, and horrendously colorblind, if that wasn't obvious. Edit. I thought it was green. But the porta potty doesn't somehow know when someone's inside, but the sign only changes to occupied when you physically lock the door. Many people walked in on me during my childhood. Edit. I was dragged to many outdoor craft fairs and whatnot as a child, so I had to use them more often than most other children. After the first one, didn't you think even if the sign outside says occupied, I better lock it this time? Though Mick Jagger's name was Mick Jagger, and people just never said his first name for some reason. Yeah, can I order a Mick Jagger meal, large? Last week I learned the phrase hurt people wasn't a command. I'm 40-something. I was taught it's fine to flush tampons down the toilet, and would even flush pads and sponges when I'd clean the bathroom. I didn't learn that it was a huge no-no until sometime in my mid to late 20s. I'm surprised the pipes at the house I grew up in weren't constantly exploding. Tampons are one thing, a lot of people I know grew up believing that, but I'm baffled by your inclusion of sponges. Like, a whole-ass sponge? You were just throwing entire sponges in the toilet and flushing? That's way more impressive. Non-exploding pipes emo. I always used replace as substitute with but learned recently it can also mean put back in its place. I was so confused when I saw recycling instructions on my laundry detergent say replace cap and I'm like, with what? But the song is Barbara Ann and not Bopperam. I thought it was Barbara Ran, so you're not alone, lol. I was like, 22 working at a restaurant making myself a salad, and I asked the chef for bumps and he stared at me for like, 60 solid seconds trying to figure out what I wanted. I explained to him I wanted bumps for my salad. I have all the rest of the toppings but now needed bumps. Guys, my family told me croutons were called bumps my entire life. I called my dad that night and confirmed that bumps are indeed, actually called croutons. Edit. First of all, thank you for the awards. Secondly, people keep asking, why did my family call them bumps? Well, someone in my family had a speech problem as a kid, couldn't say croutons, and they became bumps. Woman with light skin tone shrugging. We had other funny names for stuff, but I knew what the real words were. I just never got around to learning croutons, I guess. He thought you were asking for coke, dude. That is also where I learned bump means a bump of coke. I was sort of sheltered before working in a restaurant, lol. Don't worry, it's still a somewhat reasonable request from a lion cook. It's in the name. They used to be called white lion cooks, but eventually thought it sounded obvious. Okay, so like, this isn't really a common fact, it's just incredibly stupid, lol. When I was in high school my mum got a hysterectomy. At the same time, there was a fridge in her room that she and my stepdad used for snacks to hide them, and she would never tell us what was in it and said we were never allowed to open it. So, logically, I just assumed she kept her uterus or ovaries in the fridge because for some reason I thought that's what people do is keep removed organs. Till I was 15 I thought this, idky, for spares, posterity. My mother still laughs to this day because it was just their snacks that they did not want eaten, and I took it in a direction I'm sure made her question why she had children. To be fair, my sister thought a hysterectomy was getting your bladder removed, so that's what she thought was in the fridge. She was much younger than me, however. Narwhals are real animals. I thought they were mythical like unicorns. The D in the Disney logo was a stylized capital letter and not a backwards G. Just never always saw the Y at the end wrong too. That I was in fact not missing a testicle. Thought there was supposed to be 3 until I was like 14 years old. Hey, get back here and tell us why you thought there were 3. I was searching for the entry as I have the same story. In my case, as a kid I saw Austin Powers secretly from the backseat at a drive-in theater. There is a quote from Dr. Evil when he gets hit in the balls with a swinging globe. He then proceeds to go and count his balls, and counts 1, 2, 3, being dumb. I didn't recognize it as a joke as I had no idea how many you were supposed to have. Spent probably 17 years of my life before I realized that ake was pronounced arse and not arkai. I had only ever read the word and never heard it. Now every time I say it correctly it feels wrong to me. I just realized this. Some people mispronounce words because they've only seen the word written, and some people misspell words because they've only heard them spoken. It's all good. When I was in college, 21/22 years old, I was getting ready to go out and it hit me like a lightning bolt. If you just thread the small end of the belt through your belt loops all the way around, literally any belt can fit your pants. Because up until then, I thought sometimes I just had belt loops that were too small for certain belt buckles. I ran out to my friends and was like, guys, check this out, as I proceeded to demonstrate for them what I had just learned. I genuinely thought they'd be excited for me. It was then I learned that everyone else on Earth knew the right way to wear a belt except my dumb ass. Unbelievable how many times up until then I spent trying to jam the buckle side in first and coming to the conclusion I just needed bigger belt loops. Edit. Thank you for the awards and the hilarious comments. Unfortunately, this is a true story and I have no good excuse for why this dumb thing took me so long to figure out except to say I'm a woman and guess I didn't wear pants with belts that often. Believe it or not, I graduated from college and led a pretty successful and fulfilling life. We all do stupid stuff and I'm glad this story of my stupid thing made so many of you laugh. Nah, you were right the first time. This is why pro wrestlers carry their belts and have no pants. That you don't have to stand in the shower while the water warms up. A previous thread like this years ago someone said they didn't know you were supposed to move the towel to dry off, since on TV they just wrap it around them and walk around. They didn't like taking showers because it took almost an hour to dry after. Oh man, how do you not realize that? Have they never dried anything? Dishes? Wiped up spills? Wiped their brow? I'd hate to see how they don't use toilet paper. Edit. I wish I'd never made this comment. You'll have followed up with hilarious but disgusting things. Just stuff it up there and go about your day. Your natural movements walking around will take care of everything. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Subscribe for more content like this. Also, make sure to like, comment and share the video. Peace out.